Okay, let me ask you a question. Anyone here ever gone through a phase? I mean, like a hobby phase. You know what I'm talking about? Like not like I tried something once, but you're like you went all in. You're like, no, this is who I am. This is who I am now. This is what I do. This is what, like this is me. This is my thing. At one time in my life, I was in a woodworking phase. So I just didn't build stuff. I mean, I became a woodworker. That's who I was. That was me. I was a woodworker. I bought tools. I watched videos. I started calling wood by the kind of wood that it was. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I was pumped. I mean, I discovered something new about me that I didn't know, and I would build like these little cabinet things, and they weren't like necessarily refined, but it was going for the rustic look, you know, the antique look, you know. But yeah, so then it was great for a few weeks. It was awesome. Then I stopped going out to the garage because it was cold, and that was that. And the tools still work. The tools are still. In fact, just the other day, my son came to our house. He's like, "Dad, do you have a router?" I'm like, "A router? Of course, I have a router. Come on." And so I gave him the router, and he's like, "Hey, how do you change the bit?" And I'm like, "Ooh, it's been a minute." There's a YouTube video for that, but yeah, some of you've had phases, right? You've gone through some phases. I'm not alone in this. I know that. Some of you've had some phases you've gone through. Some of you went through a fitness phase, right? Some of you went through a sourdough phase, maybe going through a sourdough phase. I talked to my daughter yesterday, and she said, she's like, "Dad, I made this sourdough starter." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And she's like, "Yeah, so every day I have to like take stuff from it and I have to feed it." And I'm like, "Is this a child? What are we doing here? Like, what is this?" And just trying to keep the sourdough alive. It's nuts. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You're in the sourdough phase. Some of you bought a Peloton, and it was great, right? And now it's a... And now it's a very expensive clothes rack sitting there. It's doing a great job, you know, with all your clothes hanging on it. Some of you watched one documentary and suddenly became an expert. You were like half a Netflix show, and you're like, "Oh, I got this," right? Just curious, any of you going through a phase right now? I'm not going to like ask you, but going through a phase right now, no pointing, all right? But yeah, this is what we do. We do this. We go through phases. And here's the thing about phases. They all start the same way. They all start with, "Hey, I think this is the thing." Like, this is the thing. It's not even that. And this is what we say. This is my thing. I think I found my thing, right? This is my thing. This is the thing. And this is exactly where we are in Ecclesiastes. This is Ecclesiastes is really essentially a journal that is written by a guy named Solomon, who was king over Israel, and he just kind of set out to find out what, like, hey, I'm doing y'all a favor. Is essentially what he's doing. He's going, "I'm doing you a favor. I'm going to take everything that I have because I have more money and more opportunity and more resources and more fame than any of you will ever have. And so I'm going to take all of that and I'm going to pour it in to finding where is real meaning and purpose in this life." And so this is what he does. But chapter 1 essentially is where we were last week. And essentially it's just summarizing his whole experiment, because he's going, "Hey, I went out and I set out to do this. But before we get into the experiment, before I get into what I did to find life and purpose and meaning, let me just tell you, it didn't work." Like right from the get-go, let me just tell you that it's all vanity, is what he says. It's all vanity. It's all like it's everybody starts running, but nobody arrives. Like this is life. You just keep going and you never get anywhere. This is what it is. You look for it in all these places and you're not going to find it. As hard as you try, you're not going to find meaning and satisfaction and purpose here in life, on life under the sun. It's just not going to happen. It's all meaningless. So in chapter 2, so chapter 1, he's going, "Hey, just so you know what we're getting into, this is what it's about. This is the conclusion. And now let me tell you how I went about finding purpose and meaning in this life." And so chapter 2 is his quest begins. This is where he shows, like, here's the first place that I tried to find meaning to life. Let's pick it up in verse 1 if you have a Bible. If you don't have a Bible, there should be one underneath the seat in front of you somewhere. And just encourage you to pick that up and open up. This is God's word. We believe that it is the authority. This is the truth that we have. There's a lot of people that are claiming to have truth in this world. This has proven to be the source of truth for thousands of years. And it keeps going. It keeps showing itself to be true. And so when you open up the Bible, go to Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 1. It starts like this. It says, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. Solomon's first attempt at finding meaning, at finding purpose in this life, is not rebellion. It's not like I'm going to kick against everything that I've ever been told is true. He says it's actually found in relief. In relief. He's asking a question that most people just are not willing to ask out loud. And he says this. He said, what if I'm actually just taking life too serious? Like, what if I'm asking like all these big questions when really what I should be doing is just trying to enjoy the life that's right in front of me? What if the problem is not life? The problem is just, I'm just taking it, I'm looking too much into it. So Solomon, with all of his wealth, with all of his power, with all of his fame, he pours everything into the pursuit of pleasure. The pursuit, like, let's go for it. Testing every option for pleasure. And here's where he starts. He said this. He said, instead of laughter, it's mad. And of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. So in going hard after a life of pleasure to see if this is what brings meaning and purpose, like maybe it's all found in just, if you could just figure out a way to have as much pleasure in your life as possible, then maybe that's it. Maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe that's what brings fulfillment and purpose to my life. And so his first attempt in going after this life of pleasure to see if pleasure is where it's found, he looks for it in wine and laughter. Or you could say that he goes after the pleasure of escape and relief. He says that. He said, I went to cheer my body with wine. Now, understand, right out of the gate, we might go, well, yeah, he's just going to become a drunken fool and just spend his days, in just losing himself. That's not it. That's not it. This is not about drunkenness. He said, my heart. He said right after that. He said, I went after wine. He said, but my heart was still guiding me the whole time with wisdom. And so he didn't lose control of his body and of his mind. He got wine, but it wasn't about drunkenness. This was about taking the edge off. This is the glass at the end of the day. It's the show that you just watch to just shut your brain off. It's the scroll that just keeps you from thinking about anything significant that's going on in your life. It's the laugh that helps you forget for a bit. Nothing sinful about it. Nothing wrong with enjoying a good thing. But this is the kind of pleasure. This kind of pleasure isn't about feeling full of something. It's about not feeling anything. It's looking to numb the pressure of life by a temporary escape. Life is just hitting you. Life is coming. There's a lot required of you in life. And so this is, well, maybe if I could just take the edge off and not feel the pressure for a minute. That's what he's going after here. This is that kind of pleasure. It's a temporary escape. But then Solomon moves on from there. He says, I gave that a go. And then he says in verse 4, he says, I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks, and I planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. Solomon goes from laughter to building. When pleasure through escape stops working, often what happens is we move to the pleasure of achievement. I gotta build something. I gotta do something. I gotta get busy. So he builds houses, not just one house. He doesn't go after his own house. He builds a lot of houses. He builds many houses. This is the pleasure of progress. It's the pleasure that you get when you finish something. It's the pleasure that you get when you fix something. It's the pleasure you get when you see results. It's being able to say, I did that. I did that. It's the feeling, I don't know if you get this feeling, but I get this feeling. It's the feeling that you get after you mow the grass. You know what I'm talking about? And you just, like, there is not a, like, every once in a while, you just see a guy just standing in his yard. And he's just looking around. And I see that guy, I'm like, I get you, man. I understand you. It's like seeing the lines. You know what I'm talking about? Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. It's like seeing the lines from mowing your grass. And it's like some of you have got some really great lines in your grass. I don't have great lines on my lawn, but some of y'all do. Like, there's a house down the street from me that has, like, their grass. I don't know what they do. It kind of makes me mad, but he, like, their grass is just so plush, and the lines are crazy. Just crazy. Every time I pass by, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Be transparent, all right? Every time I pass by, there's a little line in me, and I just, like, you look at it, it's like, it's like that feeling of just like, man, I did that. I accomplished something. Back when I was in high school, in college, I built houses, and my favorite part of the whole process was the framing. It was like the first thing that we got to do, because at the end of the day, there was so much that you could see that you had done. You put up some walls, you put up the roof, and I mean, it's like you look back, and you leave, you're like, yeah, we did that. What I hated was, like, at the end when you're doing, like, finishing work, and you're, like, putting up trim and all that, and you're like, man, just get out of here. Like, there's no sense of accomplishment there, but there's just something about looking back, looking what you did, and you're like, yeah, I did that. I feel accomplished in that. It's the satisfaction we get when working hard and seeing the results, when the project is done, or the degree is finally earned, or the business is taking off, or the house finally feels right. Like, you set it all up, you got it painted, you got it decorated, you got the furniture put in, and it finally feels right. There's a satisfaction that comes from accomplishments. And Solomon says, I didn't just build, I built big. Just to give you an idea of the projects that Solomon took on, Solomon's dad was David, the famous king of Israel. Solomon's dad, David, he always wanted to build the temple. He wanted to be the one to build the temple for the Lord there in Jerusalem. But if you know Solomon or know David's story, he made some terrible decisions with his life. And God says, you don't get to build the temple. And so he dies, and Solomon takes the throne, and Solomon builds the temple. And the scripture tells us that it took 7 years to build this temple. 7 years to build the temple. Now, it took 13 years to build Solomon's house. Now, I don't know what that says, God's house, Solomon's house, but took 13 years to build Solomon's house. Now listen, when I was building houses, I wasn't like I worked for my dad. He was the GC. And so I remember like 13, if it took us 13 years to build a house, we'd be in trouble. Not because, I mean, just, we wouldn't be making any money, but I mean, I just saw homeowners like after 13 days get antsy. I can't imagine 13 years. Then he goes from building houses and he moves to gardens and parks. Like think like on the scale of what, like, this isn't your little flower bed in front of your house, all right? We're talking like national parks. This is the scale of what Solomon did. Now, gardens, they're not just about progress, they're about control, right? Like, you put a garden together, like there's something about that. Like, you do the planting and you do the watering and you manage and you take care of and you shape the outcome. This is the pleasure of control. Order and beauty and predictability, environments that respond when you tend to them. You give your attention to them and you know what's going to happen. It's the quiet belief that says, if I can just get my life organized, where I can control enough of it, then I'll finally feel settled. It's parents trying to manage chaos. It's young adults trying to design your future. It's trying to create stability. It's having lived a good part of your life, and now you're spending the rest of your days trying to preserve what you built. Achievement says, I can build something that lasts. The control says, I can manage what's in front of me. Solomon says, I did both. And he did it on a scale that none of us can imagine. And then after spending some time, all that time working hard, building houses, building national parks, he moves on to just kicking back with a life of leisure. He's like, all right, I went for achievement. I went for control. I thought maybe pleasure's found there. If I could just build something and feel good about it, or if I can manage everything, if I knew I had control over some things in my life, if I could just have my life under control, then he just moves on. And so from hard working to just building a life of leisure. Verse 7, it says, I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had seen before me in Jerusalem. So Solomon arranges his life so everything is done for him. Like, this is the pleasure of convenience. It's the pleasure of faster, easier, no waiting, no hassle. And man, if this is not us, like if it was just faster, right? If I just didn't have to be so inconvenienced all the time. Like, we chase this all the time. Not long ago, we were watching something on one of the streaming shows, like streaming channels like Prime or something. And as we're watching it, all of a sudden a commercial pops up. And I'm like, a commercial? What is the commercial doing here? Like, I paid for this. Why is there a commercial on my TV right now? What's going on? Now, listen, I grew up in a time where, there was a commercial on TV every 3 minutes. But we're way beyond that, right? And I'm watching this thing, I paid for this thing so I can watch without commercials. And this commercial pops up. And it was like, what is going on? And then there's this thing at the bottom that says, would you like to go ad-free? Then upgrade. I'm like, well, what do you mean upgrade? I'm like, I've already paid for this. What do you mean got to upgrade? It's so ridiculous. Did I do it? Of course I did. But I'm not happy about it. But it's this life of chasing convenience. It's upgrades, it's subscriptions, it's delivery. Who goes to the grocery store anymore, right? Like, they bring them to you. That's what you do. It's automation. And listen, I wouldn't say it's totally because we're just lazy. Totally. But it just feels like effort is the enemy of happiness, right? Like, if I got to do something, like, how can I actually be happy if I have to do stuff? And so Solomon was going, yeah, so I went after that. I hired people to do all the stuff. And I didn't do anything. I had slaves and slaves over here, and I had slaves born in my house. They just did everything for me. I just lived a life of leisure. Well, he's not done. He said, I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold, treasure of kings and provinces. So if all of this wasn't wealthy enough, he goes after maximum wealth and possessions. The pleasure of wealth and possessions. But it's not just about the stuff. Solomon's got stuff. But the reason that you always feel like you need more stuff is because money buys options. Like, that's it, right? Like, we know that this thing is eventually going to break, but that's not the thing. I want the money. I want to have the options. I want to be able, if it makes you believe that if I have more than I need, then I've got enough to be secure. And if I have enough to be secure, then I don't have to worry as much. I can just say yes if I want to say yes. I don't have to worry. I don't have to stress over can we afford it. I can just say yes if I want to say yes because I'm not stuck. And apparently Solomon had so much money that he started collecting animals that he didn't need. Listen, that's not survival. That's the belief that more will finally settle you. If I just had some more, then I'd be fine. I'd be settled. And then he goes after entertainment. He says in verse 8, he says, I got singers, both men and women. So when Solomon liked a song, he didn't download it. He didn't stream it. He just bought the band. What does this look like for us? This is endless stimulation. It's constant noise. It's content. It's podcast. It's the pleasure of entertainment. But what it is a distraction. It's a distraction. Anything to keep silence away, because silence has a way of asking questions that we don't want to answer, right? Man, if it's quiet too long, then all of a sudden my mind starts working, and all of a sudden I start asking things that I don't really want to deal with. I don't want to answer this stuff. It's a distraction to keep the silence away. And then Solomon, in his full pursuit of pleasure, he goes to what everyone expects, and that is sex and relationships. The pleasure of sex and relationships. He says, and I got many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. Now, if you're familiar with Solomon's story, This is probably the most obvious one, right? But it's not just the most obvious with Solomon. I mean, you think about going after a life of pleasure. I mean, this has got to be top tier. This is probably it, right? If I just sexual pleasure all the time, if I just uninhibited, if that was just the life that I had, I mean, that's a life of pleasure. And Scripture tells us that Solomon had 300 concubines, which were basically supermodel girlfriends who were at his beck and call to fulfill his every sexual desire. That was it. That's who he had. Now, at the same time, he also had 700 wives, so I'm not sure how all that worked. But what's behind all this? It's a longing for connection. It's a longing to be wanted, but without vulnerability, without covenant, and yet without limits. It's intimacy without weight. Like, this is the thing. I heard Tim Keller talk about one time. He said that the thing right now in our culture that most people, if they could accept a lot of things about the Scripture, the one thing that most people have a hard time, the secular culture has a hard time getting over, is the sexual ethic of the Bible. Because, I'll take forgiveness, I'll take that, but you're going to tell me that I can't have sex outside of marriage? No. But what have we done in Christianity? We've just said, we'll just kind of set that to the side. No, I can be a Christian, but I don't have to follow along with all. I mean, we'll just, I get what the Bible says, and we'll just kind of create our own Christianity, right? And so he goes for all in on sex and relationships. And so it says in verse 9, he says, so I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. In other words, he's saying, I became the most popular guy around. Like, you would imagine that, right? Like, with all the money and the power and the houses and the women, I'm sure he was on the cover of every magazine. Everybody followed him on social media. Like, he was the man. And he said, also my wisdom remained with me. Now, this matters. This matters here because Solomon is going in the middle of all of it. In the middle of all of this pursuit of pleasure, in the middle of all of it, I never, with the laughter and the wine and the building projects and the women, all of it, I never forgot what I was doing. I never forgot what I set out to do. This whole time, with the parties and with the building projects and all the things, I never forgot what this was all about, what I was doing, that this was an experiment where I was looking for meaning and satisfaction. The whole time, I never lost myself. That Solomon didn't spiral. He knew exactly what he was doing the whole time. That this was intentional with every pursuit of pleasure. He knew exactly what he was doing. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's here. I'm going to go all out with this and see if it's here. The whole time he knew what he was doing. And he says that whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. In other words, not only did I do all of the things that I mentioned, but I did everything that you could imagine to find pleasure. That there wasn't a pleasure left untried. There wasn't a desire left unfulfilled. And he said, I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil. Now, this is going to maybe mess some of you up, but here's what he just said. He said, I went all out on it, on all of it. And he says, honestly, I got to tell you, I had a good time. The laughter, the wine, the houses, the servants, the women, the bands. I had a great time. Solomon got everything that he thought that might satisfy a life. I'm going to go after all if it's pleasure is where it's found, I'm going to find it. And he went after all of it. Everything that he thought that anybody could think might satisfy a life. And then he stops and he looks back. And this is the moment of clarity. This is not what you hear Solomon say next. This is not coming out from a place of shame. This isn't coming from a place of regret. This is just honesty. Solomon's just being honest. And he says this, verse 11, then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil that I had expended in doing it. And behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. Listen, Solomon's not being emotional here. He's just being reflective. He's just going, hey, let me just tell you, I kept my mind. I knew what I was doing the whole time. I knew what this was about. This is all about looking for meaning, looking for purpose, see if it's found in pleasure. And then when he stops, he looks back and he says, I'm telling you, it just didn't do it. He stops chasing and he looks back and he just tells the truth. He doesn't say it was evil. He doesn't say I shouldn't have enjoyed any of that. He just says it was vanity. And there was nothing to be gained under the sun. This word vanity, it showed up last week in chapter 1. It means vapor. It means breath. It means mist. Something you can see but you can't hold on to. Like you had it and then it was gone. And it was gone, you're still left with you. What Solomon is saying is that he discovered the limits of pleasure. He went all out on the pursuits of pleasure. At the end of it, he realized he discovered the limits of pleasure. So one, he's saying pleasure doesn't deliver. Like Solomon didn't fail. It's not that he didn't do it right. Like he won. Like he had the wine and the parties and the projects and the wealth and the women and the comfort and the status. And he's honest enough to say, hey, I had a good time. I had a good time with all of it. But a good time is not the same as a good life. Enjoying life is not the same as a meaningful life. Like you finally get the thing that you thought would fix you, and it doesn't fix you. You thought this season would finally calm you down, and it didn't calm you down. Like some of you are coming into 2026 going, maybe this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year that I get it. Or this is going to be the year when it's all just settled down because 2025 was a disaster. And this is going to be the year when it's all settles down. The pleasure that gave him some moments, but it didn't give him meaning. Pleasure has limits. One, it does not deliver. Two, pleasure does not last. Everything that Solomon enjoyed required repetition. Everything that he enjoyed required him to get more of it. More wine, more parties, more projects, more possessions, more women, more experiences. Which is why pleasure always whispers, hey, just one more. Like you just hadn't hit the number yet, but just one more. Just one more. And Solomon says, and I kept saying yes, and it kept fading. What Solomon discovered is that what can't last cannot sustain you. Last week, we saw Solomon essentially say that life under the sun is like a treadmill. That this whole life is a treadmill. You're just moving and you're sweating and you're exhausted, but you're not getting anywhere. And so pleasure, what does pleasure become then? It's the distraction that we use so you don't have to think about your life isn't getting anywhere. Like entertainment, noise, achievement, comfort, anything to forget that we're running, we're not arriving. Now listen, before we go on, I want you to, I don't want you to hear me say something that I'm not saying. Solomon is not saying here, don't enjoy your life. That's not what he's saying. He's not saying don't laugh. He's not saying don't build something. He's not saying don't celebrate. That God is not a cosmic killjoy. God actually is the one who created pleasure. Like food tastes good because God made it that way. Like we need food to survive. God could have just made it so that our life, for our lives, that we just got to shove some things in our mouth so that we stay alive, right? But it just so happens that God created us in a way, created our taste buds in our mouth in such a way, and food in such a way that when they come together, we actually enjoy the things that go into our mouth that sustain us for our life, to give us life. Like God's the one who did that. It was God's idea. He didn't have to do that, but he created that pleasure. Like God is the one who created like music. Music moves us because God designed it that way. Sexual intimacy, it feels good because God designed the body that way. Like this is God. Like God put us together. God is not the enemy of pleasure by any means. The problem is not pleasure, and the problem isn't that we seek pleasure. The problem is where we expect pleasure to take us. That we put something on pleasure that pleasure cannot do. We expect something from pleasure that pleasure cannot deliver. C.S. Lewis said it this way. He said that God doesn't look at us and say that I can't believe that they want pleasure. He looks at us and says, they're not chasing it hard enough. They're settling they're settling for far too little. They're not seeking pleasure hard enough. That you and I, he talks about, we are half-hearted creatures fooling around with temporary joys when infinite joys are being offered to us. But God doesn't rebuke us for wanting pleasure. He just says we're settling for far too little. One of the most famous stories that Jesus ever told, it points to this. If you remember, it's about a son who went to his dad. And apparently dad was a pretty wealthy man. And he knows what's coming to him but once his dad dies. But his dad's not showing any signs of dying anytime soon. So he's like, I want the stuff. I'm tired of waiting around for this. I want the stuff. So he goes to his dad and says, hey, Dad, can we just get this thing going? Can you just give me my stuff now? Essentially, he tells his dad, hey, you and I, relationship's not really there. I don't really care about it. That's not what's most significant. What's most significant to me is the stuff that's coming to me. And so Jesus is telling the story, and and what he says the father, to everybody's surprise, the father says, okay, yeah, I'll give it to you. Because the father knows the relationship is long gone. And so he gives him all the stuff, all the money, all the stuff that's coming to him, as if, like when he dies. So it's just, he's going ahead and giving it to him. And so what does the son do? He does everything that Ecclesiastes 2 just told us. That's what he does. He goes after all of it. He spends the money on pleasure, on freedom, on experiences, on enjoyment, and for a while it works. For a while, it feels pretty good. The money is real, the parties are real, the pleasure is real, but eventually the money runs out. And when it does, so does the satisfaction. Not because the gifts were bad, but because they were never meant to replace the relationship. The son didn't end up empty because the father stopped being good. He ended up empty because he tried to live on the gifts without the giver. This is exactly what Solomon is describing here. This is what happens when good things are asked to do what only God can do. Jesus talks about this in John chapter 4. So this is not a story Jesus is telling. This is actually something that happened, that he did. He was going through this town, this area called Samaria, and it's a place where Jews just do not travel. Jews and Samaritans, they don't like each other, and so they're walking through Samaria, and he stops at this well in the middle of the city, and it's in the middle of the day. It's at the heat of the day, and he stops at this well, and a woman comes out to draw water, and Jesus asks her for a drink. Now, that doesn't sound all that crazy to us, but it would have been shocking at that moment, in that time, in that culture. Different race, different religion, certainly different moral reputations. This woman has a past. There's a reason she's coming to the well during the day. Nobody goes to the well to draw water in the middle of the day. It's the heat of the day. Everybody goes in the mornings or in the evening. You don't come in the middle of the day. So she knows exactly when to go to the well. She does not want to see people. She does not want people to see her because of her history, because of her past. And so she's there in the middle of the day, and Jesus knows who she is, knows her past. And Jesus asked her for a drink. Now, what's crazy is what is obvious about this woman, Jesus just doesn't bring up immediately. He doesn't bring up her past. He knows her past. He doesn't bring it up in the moment. He just starts by asking her for some water. He starts by talking about water, the very thing that she came there for. That well mattered. That well in the middle of that city, that mattered because water meant survival. You didn't draw it once. You had to keep coming back. So, this woman, if she could, she would just draw once and just be done. She would want to do that, but that's just not how water works. Like water runs out and you get thirsty and you got to go back and you got to get some water. You got to come back every day. You drank it and then you were thirsty again. And this is why Jesus says what he says. And he's not really talking about water when he's talking to this woman, but it's the thing that's kind of on her mind, and it's the obvious reason that they're at this well. And But what he's talking about is he's talking about everything that we keep coming back to, hoping this time it's going to satisfy. And here's what he says. He says, everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. So he's talking about anything that you pursue that you think is finally going to fulfill you. Eventually, you're going to have to come back and get it again because it's not going to be enough. That what you're drawing from can keep you going for a while, but it cannot give you life. That it works for a moment, and then you have to come back. That's Solomon's conclusion in Ecclesiastes 2. And it's Jesus' diagnosis of the human heart. Temporary things can sustain you for a while. They just can't satisfy you. Or to say it another way, anything that you have to keep refilling was never meant to fill you. Listen, some of you come in here today, you come in here tired. Not physically, but you just internally tired. You're exhausted. Like you're doing fine on the outside, like you built some things, right? Like you've achieved some things in your life. You've enjoyed some things. But if you're honest, there's this restlessness underneath. And it doesn't make any sense. Because you look at your life, you look at your family, you look at where you live, you look at just kind of how life is going. It doesn't make any sense, but you got this restlessness underneath you. And it's not panic, it's not despair, but just this quiet sense that something is not settled. Solomon tells us later in chapter 3 that God has put eternity in the human heart. There's a deep craving that God, when he made us and when he made you, he put this craving in your heart for something eternal. That means that no temporary thing, no matter how good it is, can satisfy this craving that God put in your life. And that restlessness comes from trying to fulfill that eternal void with temporary things. But here's the good news. That God didn't look at humanity chasing pleasure and say, well, forget them. They're hopeless. But actually what he did is he came to us. Like Jesus stepped into life under the sun and he lived without sin. He didn't chase the things that we chase after. He carried the weight that we keep trying to put on everything else. And on the cross, he took the judgment that our idolatry deserves. For all the times that we ask created things to be our Savior apart from the Creator. And when he rose from the dead, he didn't just defeat death. He made for us the way to get back to God. Not to a better version of life under the sun, but to life with God beginning now and lasting forever. That's what Jesus means when he went on to this woman and said, listen, you keep coming back to this well, you're just going to keep getting, you just got to keep coming because you're going to keep getting thirsty. But then he says this, he says, whoever drinks of the water that I give will never thirst. He's not offering a better distraction. He's not going, hey, listen, there's this thing that you haven't found yet. There's this pleasure on this earth and in this human life that you haven't found yet. And I can tell you where that's found. Only I can tell you where that's found. That's not it. He's offering a new source. A new source. It's not pleasure. It's not what you think. So here's the question that Solomon leaves us with. And Jesus presses in on us. What is it that you are asking to satisfy you? Like, what is it that you're asking to satisfy you? Listen, I'm not saying that you're like pursuing some really bad things. In fact, most likely, most of us, we're pursuing things, expecting something from things that are good things. Family, children, trying to, provide for your family. What is it that you're asking to satisfy you? For some of you, you already know the answer, and you know it has not worked. And today, Jesus is not asking you to clean it up. He's not asking you to stop enjoying life. He's inviting you to stop asking life to save you. To stop drawing from wells that could never fill you. And to come to him. If you're here and you wouldn't call yourself a follower of Jesus, today might be the first time that you've realized that the emptiness that you feel, it's not random. That is spiritual. And Jesus is offering you forgiveness. He's offering you new life and living water. Not later, not once you got it all figured out, but today. Now listen, if you are a follower of Jesus, come on, let's just be real. Some of us, maybe a lot of us in this room, we need to repent. Not of enjoying good things, but of trusting in them. Because what a lot of us are doing, like if we could just be real, come on. If we could just be real, what a lot of us are doing when we come in here. We come in here and we do this thing, we sing these songs, and we do all of the, the prayers and all the, we say all the right things, and we stand up and sit down when we know to stand up and sit down, and we do all the, all the Christian things, only to make it appear that Jesus is our goal, when in reality, in our hearts, we are chasing after these temporary things, and that we believe that Jesus will help us get there. And so if I show up at church, and if I do the thing, and I sing the songs, and I get emotional, and I even lift my hands, or whatever it is, and I pray the prayers, and I lead this, and I lead that, and I serve this way and serve that way. If God were to uncover, pull our heart back, what was our motivation really is what for those things is not so much because Jesus is the center of my life. It's all about him. I'm only pursuing him. It's actually because there's these things, or there's this thing that I'm hoping for. And if I go and check all the boxes, maybe Jesus will get me there. The scripture has a word for that. It's called idolatry. That Jesus is the vending machine. But I'll put the quarter in, and I'll do my time. I'll show up, and I'll sing, and I'll sit down, and I'll pray the prayers. I'll do the things, expecting him to give me what I'm after. And what you really want, and what your God really is whatever that thing is that you're pursuing, that you think Jesus is going to help you get. And just like the woman at the well, you're drawing from the wrong well, from something temporary to fill an eternal God-shaped void in your soul. And Jesus is calling you back. Not with shame, but with grace. You don't need more pleasure. You need a better source. That restlessness is not because you've not found the thing, or that thing hasn't worked yet. You need a better source. And Jesus is saying to you, right where you are, come to me. I am what your soul is longing for.